welcome back to This Old Thing. Today we're reading The Girl in the Centerfold, chapter 12. It's called Louie. And I'm so excited because, and also sad, because there's only chapter 12, 13, and 14 left of this book, and it's been so fun reading it with you guys and so interesting. But I think once we have the whole thing read, then we can have a really interesting discussion about her whole book as a whole. So if you're new to this, this is The Girl in the Centerfold by Surrey Marshe. She was Playboy's Playmate of the Month 1967 for January, and she wrote this book in 1969. You can always listen to it chapter, like whatever chapter we're on, you can start here because it's kind of like, not really separate essays, but kind of separate in a way, and you can learn from each chapter. But if you want to start with chapter 1, all of the chapters are in a playlist called The Girl in the Centerfold, so you can find everything that you've missed. So let's get going. Chapter 12, Louie. You're not going to like Louie very much. I'm not even sure I like Louie very much. You see, Louie was a gangster. I didn't know that at the time. Louie never discussed his vocation with me. But looking back on it, I have to admit it was there for me to know. I should have guessed. All those guys around him treating him with great deference. Sure, Louie, and whatever you say, Louie. Clearly, he was the boss of something, and as his girl, I shared in the respect lavished on him. If I reached for a cigarette, 3 packs and 4 lighted matches magically appeared. Well, at least one of each. When I walked into the room, everyone arose. The most comfortable chair was immediately available. It was obviously a mortal sin for an empty glass to grace my hand. In conversation, which was also instantly available, I was usually Miss Marsh. It was nice. What 19-year-old girl isn't going to like such treatment? I know I should have suspected something. In hindsight, I guess I should have peeked into a few drawers or paid more attention to conversations. At the very least, I should have asked, "Say, Louie, what do you do to have all this money?" But I never did. And he probably would have lied, and I would have believed him, and I guess I didn't want to know what he did. It all came out later when Louie went to prison. 15 years. Some kind of dope charge. There it is. Louie, a dope peddler. Dope peddler. Why couldn't he have been something with some status to it, like a bank robber or extortionist or art forger? Dope peddler. I guess in the lexicon of crooks, Louie ranks somewhere between a child rapist and a paid assassin. And I guess, having been Louie's girl during the spring and summer of 1967, that I was his gun moll. Mole? How do you really pronounce that word? M-O-L-L. I lost my spot. Here we are. I was his gun mall. Gangster's mall. Such a weird word, sorry. It's like a vintage word. Okay. If I was, I didn't know it. I sure didn't feel like the gun malls of the movies. I never even saw a gun. I'm sure I'd have been petrified if I had. In hindsight, I want to say something else about Louie and me. I guess we deserved each other. We were both a couple of people who lived beyond the pale of respectability. Where did I rank? Somewhere between a prostitute and a stripper. A playmate and a dope peddler. Now there's a combination. But the unvarnished fact is that I owe Louie so much. Louie, if you ever read this and recognize yourself, thanks, friend. Biff introduced me to Louie. Louie had an apartment in Greenwich Village, a very nice apartment, and he threw a lot of parties. In fact, Louie seemed to be involved in one endless party. At least there was always a lot of people there, smart people, nice people, doctors and lawyers, and people who didn't say what they did. They talked nice and were nice and treated me nice. There wasn't a playboy among them, and they weren't phonies. They were real people. I don't know how Biff knew Louie, but he did. Biff and I were there a couple of times. It was about the time our string was down to a couple of frayed strands, and I liked Louie and found him attractive. He was tall enough, dark, obviously of Italian ancestry, and he was older. 38. He seemed very mature. So she's 19 at this point. One second, guys. Let me get my water. Okay. He was 38. He seemed very mature. And he seemed very mature and very sure of himself. But genuinely, truly. Just say Louie was a real man. Does that explain it? He dressed well. He ate well. He lived well. He knew interesting people. He took me places. He never gave me any money. He couldn't be so unkind. But he spent money on me, lots of it. We had fun. All that spring and summer, we had fun. I didn't love Louie. I'm not even sure I liked him. But I liked what we did together. What's wrong with you? He interested me. No, fascinated me. He exposed me to a way of life I'd never seen before. Don't tell me you went. I know you didn't. We spent a week in Bermuda. I don't know how he arranged to get away. You see, Louie had a wife. I always did figure it was a very strange marriage. Ugh. Hang on. Okay, I had to crack my back. She was either terribly trusting or terribly trusting. Maybe it was the fact that it was his second marriage. I can't, Louie. I've never been able to. There's something wrong with me. However he worked it, Louie and I went to Bermuda. Lord, it was wonderful. It was so grand being away. A strange place, an island in the sun, cut off from the world. And fun, dancing, swimming, being together. What do you mean you can't? Oh God, what are we talking about here? I'll always remember that week in Bermuda as the best holiday in my life. Everything seemed to fall into place. No distractions, no worries, just fun. So now it's their convo. I just can't. I've never been able to. Nonsense. You've just been with terrible guys. You're so uptight. Are you afraid? Guilty? What's the matter with you? I don't know. I told you. You just lie there? You feel nothing? I like it. It's nice. It's warm. Oh, shut up. You can. You will. I remember his running through the surf with me on his shoulders, squealing and screaming until we both plunged headfirst into a wave. So many laughs. Louie was really funny. He used to tease me, calling me runt, or a typical, tall, statuesque Scandinavian, or Norway's answer to Anita Ekberg. Oh, I'm sure Bermuda isn't really as great as Louie made it. I told you I couldn't, Louie. Bermuda was the best, but we also did Miami, Las Vegas, and Hollywood. Can you imagine what it was like? First-class hotels, the best service, wonderful food, champagne, floor shows, everything. He was marvelous. He showed me each city, sightseeing, window shopping, nightclubbing. He'd try to show me all the best places and introduce me to people and advise me. The steaks were good here. Try the house drink there. It was delicious. I had 3 and got high. Don't play the slots. They're for suckers. Craps affords the best chance. He taught me how to play craps and I lost $50. He thought it hilarious. Promise me you'll never become a professional gambler, he said. The rest of the stay in Vegas, I was known as Craps Marsh. I always associate genuine fun and laughter with Louie. I also put it this way. Louie always went first class, the best of everything, and he gave me a taste of it. I learned what money could buy and how money acted. So it was evil money, the worst kind of money. But I didn't know that. I simply learned that I'd been picking apples off the ground. Louie taught me to reach for the branches. But travel and exposure are only a small part of what I owe Louie. I owe him one night in Miami. It isn't a very nice story, but I don't know how else to tell it except the way it was. Oh, also I forgot to put a trigger warning at the beginning, which I always do, and I always forget. Also, the whole book is triggering, so here, that's that. It isn't a very nice story, and I don't know how to tell it except the way it was. Louie and I had gone to bed. He did all the things men do everywhere. Believe me, that's absolutely right. He was terribly passionate, and, as always, I enjoyed the sensations and knowing that he was pleased. Suddenly he stopped, his face beside mine, his body enveloping me. Why did he stop? I was about to ask when he began to quiver. His whole body shook from his head to his feet, and he rolled off me and sat on the edge of the bed. I could see that he was trembling as he reached for a cigarette. What's wrong, Louie? He didn't answer, just shook more. I couldn't figure it out. What had I done? What was the matter with him? I'd never seen him like this. Louie, what is it? Nothing. The word burst from him, a low, guttural explosion. Then I knew. He was angry, no, enraged. He was so filled with rage that his efforts to contain it made his body shake. I had never seen him angry before. At no time had he ever indicated he was capable of anger. You're mad, Louie. Why? What did I do? That may be the most important question I had ever asked in my life. He turned so his face, as gray and as hard as stone, loomed over mine. His words came from deep within him. Nothing, he said. He hurled the word like a rock or an arrow. Nothing. That's what you did. Nothing. You call that lovemaking? You call that sex? Well, it's nothing. Total, absolute nothing. What are you? A picture. He made the world a thunderbolt from the sky. A goddamn fucking picture? You think you're so gorgeous? You think all you have to do is lay on your back and spread your legs? This is not going to be good for the filters. Okay, you think... I'm trying to think of how I can replace words with other words. You think all a man wants is to climb on you and do stuff that is redacted here. Christ, you're lousy. Blanking you is like sticking your blank out the window and blanking the world. I hit him. I got to my knees on that bed and I hit him. Once, twice, a dozen times. I hit him so hard I bruised my hands. And he never flinched. He never moved. He just sat there on that bed in the hotel room in Miami, Florida, United States of America, and shook. I stopped finally and looked at him and began to cry. I never cried like that before. I felt like I was crumbling. It began at the top, with pieces of my face just falling away, melting into God I don't know what, and spread over my body. I collapsed onto the bed, buried my face in the pillow, and sobbed. I had never felt so terrible in my life. I felt barren, like some totally useless, wasted thing. Ugly, grimy, filthy, futile. All those guys, Freddie, room directors, assistant room directors, executive with a capital E, Biff, all those guys, and I was lousy. Maybe I can say this? And I was lousy, something to be squirted into. A dish, oh God, a dish, a vessel, a cheap little tramp, used, laughed at. Oh God, I felt so dirty. Lovemaking, they called it. It wasn't even sex. I don't know how long I cried. It might have been forever. I cried out everything. Bunny Solvay, Pompeo Posar, Alexis Urba, Biff, everything, every dirty thing. I'm sorry, Surrey. His voice, calm and soft again, seemed miles above me. I'm sorry, Surrey. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. I apologize. The voice was silent for a moment. Turn over so I can look at you. I shook my head and buried my face deeper into the pillow. Then I felt him move on the bed and heard a click, and sensed rather than saw the lights go out. Sometimes it's better with the lights out. I felt his hand on my back. Surrey, I don't know whether you can hear me or if you are listening, but I want to tell you something. It isn't your fault you don't know how to make love. You're like a girl her first time. Tense, scared, You couldn't enjoy it if your life depended on it, and what the hell fun is it if the girl doesn't enjoy it? I felt him move again. He lay down on the bedside beside me, on his back, looking up at the dark. Love making is sharing, and what makes me so mad is that the guys you've been with. I know you lived with Biff. There had to have been others. Well, what in Christ did they do? Pump and squirt? He waited for me to answer. I didn't. Didn't they care you didn't go? I said something into the pillow. I did not know this chapter was going to be so provocative, but shouldn't be surprised. What? I said it again. I can't understand you. He took my shoulder and turned me over. Now, what did you say? I said they didn't know. What? He'd heard this time. He just couldn't believe what he'd heard. They just assumed I had. Oh my God, you mean they didn't know? Jesus Christ, that's awful. There was anger in his voice again, but not at me this time, at them. What was so awful? I enjoyed it. It was nice. You just don't know. You're kidding yourself. Look, if the girl doesn't go, it's like, I already said it, blanking the world out a window. It's kid stuff. Blanking off. Oh, shit. Don't talk that way, please. I heard him sigh. You're right, I'm sorry. Nothing was said for a long time. We were just two people in bed in two private worlds. I guess it had always been so with me. I had a far place, and the guy had his near place, and oh God. Let me get some water, hang on. Louie? What? Louie, I feel so lonely. I'm like just a floating head here. He rolled on his side and cradled my head in the crook of his arm and touched my shoulder. And in the dim light from the neon forest of Miami, I saw his face and his dark eyes above me. I don't want to read this. Oh no, this is so uncomfortable. Okay, we'll see what we can do. I looked at him and closed my eyes and opened them again, and he was still there. Help me, I whispered. He kissed me tenderly, softly, as if I were a child, waiting for some spark, some current to arc across the surfaces, and he felt it and kissed me harder and deeper. And his hand moved from my shoulder and caressed me. Yes, caressed that famous boobie, and on down to that famous fanny that was so great, and the parts that Playboy and the post office say don't exist. And I was stirred. I wanted him as I hadn't wanted others. Stop, Louie. I can't. I know I can't. He released me and moved away and rolled to his knees and looked down at me, but only briefly. I laid there. Wanting him to leave me alone. Slowly, softly, he touched me and caressed me. And caressed me and caressed me. Oh God, Louie. Louie. Oh God, Louie. And then he moved again. Oh Lord God, it was wonderful, wonderful. It had never felt like this. Never, never. He moved and I shuddered. Again he moved and again I shuddered. Oh, Louie, Louie. Sorry, I'm making this part boring because I don't want to make it the opposite of boring. I embraced him to stop the shuddering. Oh, Louie, Louie. From deep inside me, distant thunder stirred, softly rolling, rolling, then louder, closer, clapping, reverberating, nearer, nearer, and then it was gone. I can't, Louie, I can't. He never said a word. He started again. Old caresses, but new. Familiar caresses, but stirring new life. The longest time, and thunder and thunder. And when I came, the world broke. It split absolutely in half. I lay there on that bed, spent, more relaxed than I had ever been in my life, and possessed of a special understanding. I thought of all those guys, all those guys. What had Louis called me? A picture. There was the whole thing in one word. A picture. All those guys, room director, assistant room director, executive with a capital E, Marco with his big thing, Blank, the famous actor whom Al had introduced me to. All of those guys had made love to a picture. I was the thing, the image, the Playboy fantasy. Wasn't that great? I knew you'd love it. Put his thing, big, small, or indifferent, in me, and squirt. That was the glory and story of love. Surrey Marshe, girl vessel. Available Surrey, easy Surrey, willing Surrey. Playboy's finest. They saw, they conquered, they came. What a fool I'd been. The whole thing was terribly funny. Hilariously funny. Pompeo Posar. Now the blouse, please off. The aching back from the bunny costume. Alexis Urba and his hours, days, weeks of taking one picture. Hugh Hefner, pipe in hand, making his grand entrance. Hugh Hefner in his Japanese pajamas. The 35 leering businessmen in New Jersey. I laughed. Oh, how I laughed. Tears ran down my cheeks. My sides ached. And every time Louie asked me what I was laughing at, I laughed harder. What are you laughing at? Finally, I was able to answer him. Louie, I said, it's too damn bad I don't love you. Wow. Well, wonder how he took that. We're going to find out in chapter 13, Canned. What does she get canned from? I have a feeling. But we shall see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and record the next chapter as well because there's only 2 short chapters left. You can see it's not that much. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the live so that way I can break up the chapter instead of putting them all into one video. So stay tuned tonight for chapter 13. And thank you so much for listening. Go and check out my vintage store. I have some really cute Playboy shoes that are vintage from the 2000s that are available right now if you are into Playboy history and merch. And we will be back.